I'm going to share our screen. And take a look here at our calendar. So here is our calendar. And here we are here, December the 12th. Finals officially start on the 14th and they go through the 20th. At 11:59 on the 20th, that is when Canvas shuts down for the semester. Okay. So I take a look here and we go to your class schedule and final exam schedule. So here we are a Monday, Wednesday class, and your final technically is this Wednesday, day after tomorrow at 10:30, from 10:30 to 12:30 in the morning, as opposed to our regular class time, if in fact we were meeting in person. We aren't going to be physically meeting for your final class, obviously. There is a Zoom scheduled for that, but you're not actually you're not coming in and taking a test or anything. I will have a test for you to do on Canvas, which is, making some patterns and posting it very similar to what you've done for kind of homework, if that makes sense. And I will be opening that up for you soon. You don't have to do it specifically between 10:30 and 12:30. If we were in person, you would have to do it between 10:30 and 12:30, but we're not doing that. So I'm going to give you a little extra time to do it and to post it, if that makes sense. Okay. But don't wait till the 11th hour, if that makes sense. All right. It is open book. It's just like when you've done homework. Okay. It's nothing too different there. And it's open book, etc. Okay. All right. I wanted to finish up with some sleeve stuff with you today. Before I do that, though, I just, you guys have done such great work in this class, and I hope that you feel like you have grown and making patterns. And if you don't know how to do it right off the top of your head, you can find it someplace in a book and be able to kind of follow by looking at the pictures and know how to kind of get there. There isn't one way to make a pattern. If I and I was going to do this before class, but I was meeting with a student and it took a little longer than I thought. But if I was going to look up how to make a bishop sleeve as an example, and I went online and looked at some different videos, there's often more than one way to do something. So it's kind of fun to kind of play around with different techniques, whether you're doing it by pivot, whether you're doing it by drafting, whether you're doing it by slash, etc. There's often, different ways that someone might slash something. So it's kind of fun to kind of look around and see different ways that people do things, because there isn't just always one way that is the only right way, if that makes sense. There's multiple ways. All right, so we're going to play around with some short sleeves today, and I think we're going to make a bishop sleeve also. And then after class, I'm going to post a couple of fun sleeve videos that I found just for you to look at if you're interested. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Get my ladybug going first. And a new screen. I can't believe it's our last class. This time is just going by so fast. And also, I just want to remind you too, if you are really enjoying making patterns, or you really are interested in being a pattern maker or designer or a costume maker, I would really suggest that you continue your studies with pattern making. We have some different classes, okay? So We have advanced pattern making where you make patterns full scale and you do more advanced techniques, do things with pants and you do more drafting, that type of thing. And that's great for fashion design, the person who's interested in home sewing or sewing, for individual people, custom sewing, or costumers. Draping is also something coming up in the spring. That's a wonderful thing for both designers as well as costume designers. There is CAD pattern making with Tukatech. That is perfect for people who are really wanting to go into industry for pattern making. It's not really something that costumers really need. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it's not something that people who are interested in costuming really need. And then things like corsetry, sewing with knits, all of those alterations and fitting, all of those 3 classes have an element of pattern making, drafting, etc., that are in them, that have like important skills that are great to have. So just to kind of give you some direction if you're interested in continuing your studies. Okay, so some little bits of information to kind of start with here. A little too much, a little too close. Okay, so short sleeves. Okay, so basically with short sleeves, you're cutting off part of the sleeve. So if I had this one, I could very easily turn it into a short sleeve by just cutting off the bottom below or above the elbow area. Okay. One of the things that you do want to make sure when you're doing a sleeve and you're making it short is to fold it in half and make sure that when you match up the underarms and the base of the sleeve, that this is equal. Okay, so that's just a little trick. And then typically people want to do like a facing hem at the bottom of it. So we'll talk about how to kind of do that. We'll start off. I so wish that this had a little bit. I'm going to add to this a little bit so I can use this piece of paper. I'm just going to add to this a little bit so I can use this piece of paper and get my sleeve lined up. So. Okay. All right. So here's my sleeve sloper. And Now let's say at this point, I want to make a short sleeve out of it, okay? I don't have to pivot this to the base because I'm going to cut it off. So let's just decide I am going to cut it off above this. Cut it off here. I'm going to cut it off a little higher than that. Now, when I cut this out, okay, I'm going to leave some paper here and here. You'll see why in a minute. And if I forget to leave paper there, I can just kind of paste some on. This is to kind of do the facing all in one. I'm just going to cut a little bit around here and down. Now, I can just cut this off here, but instead what we do is I'm going to fold it on the line that's going to become the hem of my sleeve. And typically, when I do the phasing, it's a good, like for full scale, I would want to do like 2 inches. For half scale, I'm going to do 1 inch. A little bit big. Let me do 3/4 of an inch for half scale. This little piece right here is going to just extend up. I'm going to use it to kind of create my facing. So this line right here is going to be my hem. This part is going to be my facing. Pull back up here. And then I don't know if you can see, the line doesn't quite match up. So what I want to do below there, go ahead and cut on this line. Don't follow the back, follow the front. So it doesn't quite match up with the sleeve there. when I fold this out now, this kind of comes out a little bit. And that allows this to now become part of the facing. Now, what I want to do is fold this over now.
Lindsay, I can't tell what you're doing. Did you cut the bottom from the bottom line or from the top? I'm like, I don't know. I don't understand what you're doing right now. So you made 2 lines and then you cut off the bottom line?
Yeah, so this is going to be the hem, the edge.
Uh-huh.
This part, which was the bottom of the sleeve,
Uh-huh.
under to become part of the facing and the hem.
So the extra that you had on the sides, what was that for?
Okay, so if I just cut this right here, which was the edge of the sleeve, if I cut that off,
Uh-huh.
it isn't wide enough to be the facing.
Okay.
So what I did is rather than make a separate piece,
Mm-hmm.
it was measured down. I did 3/4 of an inch
Mm-hmm.
from that line, and then I folded it under, and then I trimmed
Oh my
it.
God.
That piece, I don't have to make it a separate piece.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So this little shape now allows this to have enough to fold under, okay, because the sleeve is tapered. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to fold it. Okay. Make sure that the underarm is matched up, and you want to make sure it's the same length, okay, here. If it's not, you need to adjust it, okay? So it should be the same length. Okay. So this is a nice short sleeve. I need to find my sleeve, just put my sleeve down. Here it is. Make sure you get your notches on there. Get your notches on there. Have our cap line on there. We've got our green line. Make this our green line. So we're going to have this be short sleeve with facing and 22. That's a good date. And we're going to do size 10. We're going to cut 2 of these because we have 1 on each side, okay, that we need to use. All right, so that is your basic short sleeve with an attached facing. Okay, so let's talk about puff sleeves. So if I have a bodice and we have a sleeve that's like this, we have a puff sleeve. But we can also have a sleeve that is more like that. So in this case, the puffs are at the arm's eye. In this case, the puffs are at the cuff. And sometimes we can have this sleeve right here would be the same as this sleeve, okay, this bell sleeve, except the bell sleeve doesn't have the cuff. The cuff is what it's gathered to. Now the difference between this sleeve and this sleeve, or this sleeve, okay, is that this one has the fullness at the bottom, this one has the fullness at the top, which means that we are slashing it in a different way. Okay. So all 3 of these start with our short sleeve. Okay, and we don't have to worry about the facing on this, we can just make the sleeve. So we go ahead now and I'm gonna make a sleeve. A short sleeve, need more paper. I'm just gonna do this one. I'm just gonna make a short sleeve here. Okay. And before I do that, just in case I forget where the front and the back is. And double check this before I cut it off in case I have to tweak it. You want to make sure that they're matched up here and they're matched up at the bottom. So they're exactly the same length. All right, so for the first one, what I want to do is make it puffy at the shoulder. Okay, so if we're going to make it puffy at the shoulder, the way that you want to do it is to actually have it slash down. Okay, so that we spread it this way and this actually gets bigger. So I like to pick kind of equal increments as I go across. So I'll put one here and one here. Oops. Here. Okay. So that they're both equal. And then I'll pick one, do two more slashes. Try again to pick something above. I'm gonna do like another inch down. And then an inch down from this. Inch down from this. I don't want to really go below the notches. I try to keep it above the notches, so it's mostly in the sleeve cap. And then I'm going to do some slash lines. And I'll have them go down, because this is coming narrow. I'm going to have them go down. So try to go down two, but not through. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread it. Spread it this way. Now this allows me to get a lot more at the top that I can gather in while still keeping the sleeve, the base, relatively the same height. Now, what I need to do now is to kind of adjust the length of the cap a little bit. So this is where the play, just a tad, I'm going to put this on pink paper so you guys can see it a little bit better. I'm trying to spread this evenly. A little bit more careful about spreading it evenly with the sleeve than I am with bodice, for instance. Taking the cap line, measure it against, and I'm gonna put 1/2 inch increments. That's straight though. Get this on the floor. All right. Start with the cap being straight. I picked it up and moved it because I want to start with this piece being straight. I also am going to be adding to the cap, and I want to make sure I have enough room at the bottom, so I just didn't allow myself enough paper. Try to do this evenly before I stick it down. Okay, so I'm just trying to make sure that they're relatively close to being the same spacing. All right, so now what I need to do is I need to add to the same cap, and the way that you do that is you're going to go off of essentially this curve. So this curve. So I was trying to make sure that we had enough space there to be able to manipulate that sleeve cap. So I'm going to add a sleeve cap. This allows for that little puff to happen as opposed to going straight down, it's going up. And I want to follow this curve as much as I can while I am constructing this. You know, have enough paper there. I would suggest that you get I'm going to have to add a little bit more. not quite the same curve. Too high. All right, I'm not really liking this ruler for this. There's a big French curve. So what I'm trying to do here is go off the tip or close the tip of the back and bring the curve around, adding, at least an inch half scale to the top of the sleeve cap. Do a similar thing to the front. The curve is not going to be the same from the front to the back, and that's okay. Sometimes it helps to have extra hands, right? So bring that back around, stay slower. Okay. A little off. So if you notice, I'm not adding as much to the front of the sleeve, which is pretty typical. It ends up on the wrong line. Now this doesn't have the facing on it. You can always add that on. Some tape, hold it back. I just want to show you how to do a self facing on the other one. So now what I've done is I've added to my sleeve cap so I can have that puff. I redraw my cap line. Make sure it's at a right angle here. My new cap line now here. This is my grain line. This is where I'm going to end up having my gathers. So this is going to be a puff sleeve. And 12, 22, size 10, cut 2. I got my green line on there, and that's my nice puff sleeve. So let's do the opposite. Let's say I want to do one that is more like this shape. So it's belling out towards the bottom. Or if I wanted to, I could turn that into one that is this shape, where it's being gathered into a cup. Okay. So I'm going to do that for the short sleeve. So same thing. I'll stick it here. to get them on before I get it all cut out, because I might forget which was the front and the back once I start sloshing it. Which is not fun. And the last one, we're gathering it up here. In this case, we're keeping this the same, but we want this to be fuller so that we can create either the bell shape, where this is wider down here at the bottom, or fullness so that I can gather it to a cup. And if you do a cup, you're drafting the cup. So in this case, I'm going to slash up in the opposite direction. I'm just going to pick points again. I kind of make it equidistant. Put above the notches if I can. Kind of aiming for even spacing. Oh, I just slashed it the wrong way. I forgot what I was doing. All right, I'm gonna bring it down straighter. Ignore that. Forgot which sleeve I was making. We don't do that. thing before, now we're gonna be. More this way. We don't have to add to this, to the height, because it's not puffing up. It's going pretty flat down. So now we've slashed it. You want to add a little length. Unfortunately, I'm a little short there. Patch myself here. So add a little bit of length. I would say about half scale, like a quarter inch, more like half an inch for your full scale. Take off the side here. To the side seam. Boy, I got kink in everything today. I kink in this ruler, I kink in that ruler. Okay, so add about quarter inch to the length of it. You can certainly put a facing on this also with a separate piece, similar to what I did before. So you have something to turn it up. And then when I redo my cap line, you're gonna line up this point and this point here. Make sure it's perpendicular still at the center. Those like that. Now you have your new cap line. So that is how you would create the spell sleeve. Now, if I wanted to turn it into a cuff, you have to decide by measuring the arm. Okay, you measure the upper arm around the upper arm of whoever, or you can use a standardization formula to draft that cuff. I don't want to tape measure. I have pretty beefy arms. But whatever that measurement is, and then you want to add a little bit for ease, so a good, half an inch for ease to go around it. And then you gather this to that. So you would, whatever that measurement is, add a good half an inch for ease, half scale. And so let's say I measure, let's see, we'll measure what would be a good amount here. This is 12 inches. Scrap is not long enough. Long scrap. So if I wanted to turn it into puff sleeve, let's say my arm measurement is 12 inches. Then let's say I want the cuff to be 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay, so I want the cuff to be that wide. Remember, I'm working half scale. So whatever that will be a full line. So that's going to be 1.5 inches long. So my paper's not long enough. Sometimes suggest you use a bigger piece of paper. Oh, silly me, just thought of something. So I was measuring my own arm being 12 inches. I would have to turn that into 6. Okay, so you'd eat my Wheaties this morning, apparently. So I'm changing this. I'm changing this to 6. So that's the measure of my arm. I'm going to add a half an inch for ease. this is gonna fold in half. Become the cuff for this shirt. That does seam allowance, obviously, but this will now gather into that. So if I want it to be gathered at the bottom, all I have to do is add that extra marking and make the cuff, which I draft from the arm measurement. Gather. Now it's puff sleeve. Okay, so we have a bell sleeve, two different types of puff sleeves. You can do both. You can slash it all the way through and gather here and have it be a balloon sleeve. So any of those things are possible. There's one more that's really fun to do that I want to do with you. It's a combination of flat pattern and drafting, and that is one of my favorite sleeves, personal favorite sleeve, which is a bishop sleeve. When you do a bishop sleeve, you want to get this dart down as a long sleeve, or at least the 3/4 length sleeve. Sometimes people make it longer. I like, with my bishop sleeves, I like them to, I should kind of draw a little picture so you know what a bishop sleeve is. The bishop sleeve is a sleeve that comes down and then goes into a cuff. I personally, and if it's like this, typically people are going to shorten it to being a 3/4 length. I like my bishop sleeve to do this before it goes to a cuff. So there's a lot of kind of pooling. I really like the pooling of it going back up into a cuff. So if you want it like this, you're going to get this dart down to the sleeve, but then cut it off to a 3/4 length sleeve. If you like it more like I like it, then keep it the normal length, okay? And then add a cuff, because that's going to push it up onto the arm, okay? So just a little difference depending on how you like your bishop sleeves. I like this. So this is one of my favorite sleeves. Like lots of movement with my bishop sleeve. So I'm going to start at doing my sleeve. We slash like we did last class. Get my sleeve. Get that one lined up there. Go ahead. Trace it out. Put the curve on there. Put your dart on there. Hit that stupid pivot point on there. Notches here. Okay, so the first part, we're going to use the slash method. We're going to use the slash method to get the dart, move down. sure I get my cap one on there. Well, make sure it's perpendicular. I really need to make sure here and here, and that's perpendicular, and then matching up at the top. All right, I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to slash here over to here, and then from the bottom of the sleeve up to this pivot point. And I'm going to close that dart. Get my notches on there so I don't cut them off. Okay, so closing this dart like so. And moving that elbow dart to the cup. Okay, so that's where the flat pattern kind of stops. Now the rest of it's going to be drafting. I'm going to get another big piece of paper. So take this and we'll glue it down to another piece of paper. Try to get it lined up nicely. Just up here. The X's. Now we're going to do a bit of drafting. All right, so drafting is when do measurements and points. Okay, so you notice this isn't totally straight here. And that's to be expected. First thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the cap with the bottom of the cup and draw a straight line. I'm going to do this in a different color so you can kind of see. Okay, so I'm adding some right there. Okay, and I'm going to do the other side. Now I want to double check the hold on one second. So now I want to connect this point. Let's see that. Yeah. This point right here with this point. If I chop off a little bit, that's okay. A nice little straight line down there at the bottom. We do another, I have to go up to the top, and I'm going to look at this point here, cap line, and I'm going to use my cap line, which is this line right here. Make sure it's totally perpendicular. Right here. And bring this line straight down, the top of my ruler being perpendicular, straight down to the bottom. Okay, so now I've added some to this as well. Go ahead here and box out the sleeve. See this line here. I got one straight across, this at a right angle here, and this straight down. Okay, so now we're going to add some to the bottom of my sleeve. Before I do that, I'm going to raise it up just a tad, because we're kind of done with the top of the sleeve right now. Raise it up a little bit. So, I'm looking up some numbers here. So, TV. So here, about, and I'm kind of eyeballing it, about at this point. Okay. What you want to do is raise it up a little bit. They suggest for full scale that you raise it up 1/4 inch. I'm doing half scale, so I'm going to do it 1/8 inch. So typically be 1/4. I'm going to do it 1/8 inch, so it's about here, and it kind of almost is that. If you look at naturally, that's the height that the sleeve was. Before I spread it. And then where the dart is, so here's my old dart here. I'm going to lower it it's 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. So right here in the middle of the old dart, full scale, I do 1/2 inch. Half scale, I'm going to do 1/4 inch. I'm going to make a point right here. Okay, so up here 1/8 inch, down here 1/4 inch. Now this actually is the correct mark. So this is where French curve comes in handy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a curve that goes from here, intersects here, comes up here, intersects here, and then comes down here. Now this almost does it right there as it is, so that's pretty cool. So I'm just gonna go here. Oops. So, and then very nicely. So I've got this nice curve that goes here, 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 here. Cross this off. Cross this off. Cross this off. Okay. So now I'm ready to cut this out. Find my scissors. So there we have our nice little bishop sleeve. Create a cuff. Now when you do this bishop sleeve, you're gonna draft the cuff. But when you draft the cuff with your measurements of your wrist, you also want to allow for a button. If I wanted to do even more slashing, let's say I want it to be super, super full, I can go from this point and slash up, spreading it even more if I want it even more dramatic pulling. But when you do your cuff, remember with a cuff, again, it's going to be something that you grab. When you do your cuff, you have to remember, like, remember when we did the front of the bodice? You have to think about, okay, it's going to be going around. How tight do I want it to be on my wrist? And how big is the button that I'm going to use? Because I need to make sure that I create a buttonhole for the button. So again, you know, if I'm going to do, let's just say, I'm playing around with something that's full scale. Make it nice and wide. let's say, I decide that I want to have a button, and we're working half scale, so let's say my button's a half an inch. So similar to when we did, if you recall, similar to when we did our bodice front, we're going to do a little bit of drafting. So you're going to start off with whatever your measurement is and kind of follow the directions for creating the cuff because you have that overlap. So they have options here for 1 button cuff, 2 button cuff, etc. And then this one, this is a very elaborate. This is what's called a French cuff. Those are super cool. That's why you have so much more going on with the French cuff. If we want to do this, so you need to have the extension to give us a measurement. So this if we're let's say we were doing a half scale. So half scale is a 1/4 inch. That's not my cuff. That's not my cuff. I lost my cuff already. Here it is. All right. So if I was working with, let's say I have it's always hard to play around with buttons because we don't have half scale buttons. But if I was working with a button that was half an inch, and you're going to measure over half an inch from that point, and then you're going to plant your button in the middle of that. So here would be my fold line. Fold it up, create your fold line. Button is going to be here in the middle of this area. And then here, we're going to measure over, this is to create your half an inch. And then over again. So our button's going to go here, and our button hole is going to be here, and it's going to fold over like this. You're going to have to put your button hole all the way through to the cuff, the other side, and that's how you do it. Match up here. Little cup to have this gathering tip. All right. But it's a combination of drafting and pattern making. Now, if I wanted to do even more with this, I could even slash it and spread it more. I can smooth this out underneath. You can get more going on and then redraw my Kevlar. Now there's a whole bunch of other sleeves as well, which we get into in the advanced pattern making class. You know, things like kimono sleeves. There is a separate sloper that incorporates the kimono sleeve, but you can also draft it. So here's an example of the kimono sleeve. These go in and out of fashion. They typically will have a lot of wrinkling in the underarm area. This is going to show you how you can manipulate that. And then these are some different design things that you can do with basic kimono sleeve. Some ideas of like some dropped things, etc. This is the raglan sleeve is one that we see probably more than any of these as well. So, you know, it's funny because like a lot of my students in my illustration class, they have a tendency to beginner mistake is to forget the arm side sleeve, the arm side, and sometimes they just completely leave it out. Thing is, as I said, this is something that goes in and out of fashion. And this one, I love this one. This was something that's really popular in the 40s, where it's like a partial with like a built-in epaulette. Most of these styles, though, they create a very rounded looking shoulder unless you pair them, which sometimes they did in the 80s, with a big shoulder pad. So if you have a rounded shoulder, it has a tendency to make people look without a shoulder pad. A very rounded shoulder or without an arm's eye, it tends to make people look weaker, and if they're heavier, rounder. A shoulder pad kind of counteracts that. So like in the 80s, they would do things like this and then throw a shoulder pad in it to kind of create more of that boxiness. But you know, you either love these or don't like these. But there's some other things in here using that type of idea, both combination of drafting and pattern making. But we do more of that in the advanced pattern making, the kimono sleeves. Okay, versus the set-in sleeves. Set-in sleeves are probably 90% of the sleeves. All right, do you guys have any questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
For the slopers that we're sewing, if we want to do one where we're basically showcasing sleeves, does the bodice also have to be something more elaborate, or can we use the basic bodice with the basic darts?
You can use the basic bodice with the basic darts, but you could also use, if you wanted to, combine two of your patterns. So, you know, if you have 8 patterns, you could take one of the ones where you did something to it and combine it with a sleeve and have it count as 2.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
But if you want to use the basic one, that's fine, and just focus on the sleeves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No. I remember one of you did this really pretty neckline that was a scallop neckline. It'd be really pretty with a scallop sleeve. Just saying. You do that. All right, that's it, guys. So I'll be posting that test for you, your little final exam. As I said, it is really kind of like your homework, so it's not going to be a big surprise. And make sure you get those 4 extra slopers done. If you didn't do your slopers for the midterm, make sure you get them done for the final, okay? Because you need to have 8 total. Any questions? All right. It was a pleasure having you, and I hope I get to see you in some other classes. Make sure you register. I'll take a minute to plead the case. Make sure you guys register sooner. I know it's so hard, so hard. You're thinking about finals, you're thinking about holiday plans, getting places, getting errands done. I mean, there's so many things I know you guys are thinking about right now that finishing is on the forefront, not starting. And I totally get that. However, the boom has been to be canceling classes earlier and earlier. There was some new negotiation with the part-timers contract that that basically says that they need to get canceled sooner so that they have notice, which is really tough, especially over the holidays. So if you can please get registered for your classes this week, even if you end up changing them later, please do so. You know, so a couple of our classes are a little bit on the lower side. I was sure last time I looked, Couture, which was probably about 4 or 5 days ago, Couture was a little bit on the low side. The millinery was a little bit on the low side, and dye processes was a little bit on the low side. So the wearable art dye processes. So I think everything else was pretty healthy, but that doesn't mean we still don't want you to register. Okay, so they were looking for anything that was 10 or under to cancel it this week. So try to get registered. And then the new number now is not 18, it's 22 students. So even if, you know, we might get to, you know, the day before classes and we might have 16, and they would totally have let that go in the past. And now I'm not sure they will. So please, please, please get registered. Anybody got questions about classes to get registered for? Okay. If anybody needs CWE, which is cooperative work experience, which goes with internship, go ahead and email me and I will send you an APC code. It is not full. They purposely put full on it so that you ask me for an APC code. So that's how that works. Okay. All right, everyone, have a great holiday. And you may get a thing for Zoom. We're not meeting for the final. You just need to get your stuff done. So there's no second class during finals week. This is the very last class. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Oh, thank you.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.